I got kicked out of my own meeting.
Nice.
So this should be interesting. The 1 o'clock calls, I feel like, always have an issue. So I'm probably actually going to leave the video, take the video off, just because I'm having some issues and a lot of people are on at my house right now. So, all right. Yeah, my internet connection is unstable, so this should be lots of fun. Okay. So I'm going to start sharing my screen and we'll just get things started. Give me one moment. And Mike's here, you know, when I get kicked off again.
I'll try to be a backup. And I'll answer any questions that you guys have in the chat, if that's okay.
That would be awesome.
Yay.
Right, let me minimize this a little bit. All right, so can we see the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
At least I can.
Yes, and if you could just, when I ask that, yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. All right, so today we're going to talk a little bit about student-directed work. And basically, the reasoning I really kind of wanted to talk about this as a topic is I feel like everybody is working so hard to get good content up on their classrooms, and you're trying so hard to, you know, post all the time that maybe we have to just also rethink a little bit about what types of materials we're posting. So I think a lot of it has been like an everyday math and reading and writing maybe, and depending on, you know, what type of classroom you're in, what type of grade level you're in, and things like that. So what I was looking to do was kind of look for some ideas, and really the thing that prompted this was the idea of choice boards. And I was seeing that a lot lately on Twitter, and which I highly recommend, by the way. If you're not on Twitter, and even if you're not looking to post a lot of things, I find that it's such a great way to gather information and learn some of the things that are out there, some other tools people are sharing all the time on it. So we're big Twitter users, just more importantly for the learning that goes on in developing your personal learning network. But so one of the things that people were talking about was the idea of, rather than it always being these, here's my math lesson, here's my social studies lesson, here's my science lesson. And I know in a lot of elementary buildings, it's even hard to figure out where to fit in your science and social studies lessons. So looking at what could we do to give them some options for learning that are more student directed, and doesn't have to be you in front of the Google Meet or in front of, you know, talking to them and instructing them. So there's so many good things out there. And I know later on today, Dan Side's going to be, after this, talking about Nearpod, which I highly, highly recommend you tune into if you can. But these are just some other options, and I really geared this for 3 to 12 because we're going to be using Google Slides, and it's just going to be a little bit easier. So if anybody is on right now from the K2 level, Julianne is doing something as part of her Seesaw learning, so you might want to jump off and go on to her call for that. All right. So the first thing I'm going to start with is
Alexa, set timer for 8 minutes.
is if you guys could just make sure you're muted, that would be great. We're going to start with hyperslides, and hyperslides are hyperdocs, and basically I'm using this I'm not doing this in present mode because I do have some stuff over on the side here, which I just kind of wanted to share the idea with you of being able to use things when we're using Google Slides. And there are other routes, like you don't have to leave everything just on the slide. As you can see here, I just posted out on the right here, kind of how it works. And I had some other stuff, but I took it off. But basically you can use the space around it, because typically when you share something in Google Slides with your students, they're not getting it in the presentation mode. They're getting it in the editing mode like this. So you can make the slide whatever template it needs to be. And you can even add instructions over on the side here. All right, but basically this is why we're doing it, because it takes a little bit of planning up front, but then when the students get to start working at their own pace, it doesn't require you to put a daily assignment up on your Google Classroom. And it allows them to work not just at their own pace, but choose how, in many cases, how to share out what they've learned. And it gives them a little bit more variety that way. So I'm going to start the hyperslides. And hyperslides are basically a hyperdoc. And I know some of you had tuned in the last EdCamp. I did something on Google Slides, and we talked a bit about hyperdocs and what they are. So this, you're going to get a copy of this Google slideshow, and when you click on any of these little boxes here, you're going to have the shared, you're going to actually have your own copy of all of these templates that I'm sharing today. So when you click on it, it's going to ask you to make a copy, and you can do that. But I have already done that, so let me open that up. And I'm hoping that I'm still on there.
You're good.
Close it. We're good still? Okay, I'm just going to close a few things just in case. Okay, so this is an example of a hyperdoc, which is also, some people are calling it a hyper slides because they're using Google Slides. I know Mike agrees with me on this one. We're big Google Slides fans, rather as opposed to a Google Doc. Mainly because of what you can manipulate on here. You can drag and move anything, any images, any shapes, anything you want to on a slide. Where in Google Docs, you're kind of set, if you put an image in, you have to kind of format it differently. You know, you're limited with whether it's in line with text or wraparound text. And so you wind up with just a lot of limitations this way. Where we could come out in Google Slides, this is what we're making. I could even just make what I did, which was one slide. That's all that my whole presentation is today. But it's got so much information on it. So this hyperdoc is only called a hyperdoc because it has hyperlinks built in. And hyperlinks are basically just links to some outside source, typically online, typically on the internet. Typically a video, it can be another slideshow, it can be a website for them to visit. So the whole thing that makes it a hyperdoc is the ability to click on something in that document that is linked out to something else. So this one, this is a template. This is not something we're going to work through today, but it's really a very well done, maybe to some of you even more cluttered than you would like, version of a hyperdoc. So what this was talking about the Underground Railroad, and it gave you the lesson objective, was typed up in the beginning. And then it gives you the kids instructions, which I love because not all of them do, but it tells them, look for these icons while you're working on this. Type up your response, then you see the little hand signal. If I want you to click on something, you'll see the little link. And it's giving them kind of these 5 different points for them to look at. So they're going to start off with exploring. And what was the Underground Railroad? Explain. So they're going to click on the link, and that's what it's meaning. It's somewhere on here, up right here. Here's the link. I'm going to learn a little bit about the Underground Railroad just by clicking here. So I'm not even sure because I'm not on my regular main screen here, but those of you who have been around for a while, this is how I described it to some of the old timers like me. Back in the day when web quests were a big thing, like the late 90s, early 2000s, and people were doing web quests once the computers started getting into the classroom. That's the same idea of this, except it's a lot more fancy. And the web quests were usually posted on a website, and this is kind of still posted on a website, but this can be a shared document that they can type right into. So this is another more exploring. Now this one ties it into literature with using the story, Follow the Drinking Gourd. There's a video here for them to play, and it shows you that there's a link on this page and they know to play the video. So this, again, really long hyperdoc. And if anybody here is teaching Underground Railroad anytime soon, it's all yours. You have the link to it. It's very, very well done, but it is very intensive. This type of longer one like this is very labor intensive to do. So one of the things I also suggest is don't always reinvent the wheel. Take something great, make it your own. Look out there. You can Google, you know, your topic and hyperdoc, or your topic and hyper slides, and you'll find things that are already created that you can just go in and tweak. Some people apparently have had a lot of time to do this, whether they had release time to do it or they did it for a summer curriculum project. But as you can see, every page that I go on to, there's another video, but it asks them to explore and learn. And it also asks them to reflect on their learning, to cite evidence. So again, student directed. Once this was all put together, the teacher steps out and this becomes a long term, like maybe this is due on such and such a date. So, and these slides are not something that you would have to go through each student's slide and say, this is correct, this is incorrect. This is more for them to research and gather information. You're supplying them with the resources. You're supplying with the note-taking sheets. You're giving them some different, Maybe this is the page I want them to turn in. You know, you don't need to make it something that you have to go through now, and when they turn it back into classroom, now I have to go check every slide, because that doesn't make sense. The whole point here is maybe you just want to go through and look at the apply slides. The bigger thing that you want them to do is do this part where it's a sharing. So it's time for them to create something. And what has happened and what we continue to be doing here is moving from just having them be consumers of what you put on your classroom to take some of the information that they're learning and become creators of the content. And that's what we're looking for here. Just like you would give them maybe a book report to do, and here's your choice of book report projects. Well, here you go. Here are your choice of how you're going to share with me and your classmates your knowledge of what you learned about the Underground Railroad. And it gives them some different options here and how they can do it, sketch notes, create a movie. You know, they're all on devices at home. It gives them some links to different sites that they can use. Even shows them a reflection on a flip grid here. Click here for your flip grid. And this is giving credit to the teachers who created all this, and they have their own little Lisa Highfield, terrific on Twitter to follow. She does a lot of great things. So again, this is like a really extensive kind of gold standard of what a hyperdoc might look like. The reality is no one of us has time right now to sit down and build out something like this, but maybe you can take an idea like this, or maybe you're doing Underground Rail and you can modify this to be a little maybe shorter, maybe add things that are more custom to you. And maybe you just want to take some templates, and we'll have those shared out too, for building out your own, so that the more fun stuff and the step-by-step part is already built in there, and then you just customize it a little bit. So that's the whole idea today. Is I want to share with you some templates that have already been started that you can just drop your content into and make it more your own. So that's just the hyperslide section. Coming back here, the next idea is choice boards. So I have that open too. Choice boards are probably a little less extensive. So that hyperdoc that we just looked at was really, really long. And the choice board will be more like we're giving them a choice for one particular topic here, okay? And this is actually a very good template. I'm gonna walk you through some of these things. So it gives the students directions. You're gonna find something to read, a video to watch, and some vocabulary terms. So you can choose the topic that you're working on. That's step one for them. Then they go over here to step two, which is choose an activity that they want to do to share what they've learned. So maybe it's create an infographic, maybe it's create a digital poster, maybe it's a photo bento, which we'll talk about, and maybe it's just a sketch and tell. So this whole document over here on the left, every slide, this is the slide that they would get. Here's your topic, it's on cells. And so their option, they're gonna go to slide one, they're gonna go here, and this would be if they wanted to do something, you can replace it or you can share out information for them. This is more of an infographic style. This is how they would show what they learned. And it gives them, if not, I'm going back here. So infographic, go to slide 2. Digital poster, go to slide 3. Oh, I think they have this wrong. I don't think they have this in the right order. Yeah, photo bento, this is a photo bento. I'm gonna just hold off on this one and share this with you in a minute because I have a bigger thing about bento boxes, but this is another way for them to share what they know using symbolism. So it gives them a template and a choice here, a topic poster, a sketch and tell, and it gives them the instructions on here. So basically what you can take from this template is you can put in your own topic and you can set up where they're going to go to read about it, where they're going to go to learn vocabulary about it, where that one was on Quizlet. This video goes to YouTube and it might be a video that you've put in here. So you only needed to customize really 3 things on the choice board, but it gives them the option to learn it in 3 different ways, right? They're reading about it, they're watching a video about it, they're learning some vocabulary about the topic, and then they're going and using that information, they're going out and creating a way to share that with you. So what are you looking at for this? They're turning into you either an infographic slide, just the slide, or a photo bento, or a topic poster, or a sketch and tell. Because the reality is we can't teach all of the things that we once did in the format that we're doing right now. So if you're finding, especially maybe people in elementary right now who are having a hard time fitting in, where does my science content come in? How am I teaching this to them? Well, maybe this is my social studies, and I want them to focus on this one particular topic. I know in 5th grade social studies right around now, we started looking at like the We the People. So we're looking at things with Constitution and Bill of Rights. And so maybe you're taking one of those smaller topics and putting it in here for them to learn about it on their own. So that's really a great way to do a choice board. And again, because it's in Google Slides, you're going to put it into your Google Classroom, make a copy for each student. They each get their own copy of whatever it is, and they get to make their choice that way. This is another one, and this is just called a game card. It's also made in Google Slides. Oh, I don't think I opened this one, so let me make a copy. Trying. It's going in. Give me 1 second. Here we go. And this one actually you could use right away in your classrooms because it's for next week. May the 4th be with you, for those of you who are Star Wars fans. And this is another self-directed learning opportunity for them. They can just go through, you can embed in a template, and you can clear everything else out of this template right now. And we'll have some extras for you that are more basic. But basically all this, you'll just change the background. You can customize your little pictures here. These are all 8. You can delete any of these. Every little piece on here can go away. Although I do love all of this theme, and I shared it out with some of my Star Wars friends. You can customize the title. You can customize the background just by going to background, choosing a new image, and adding it. So just off of this game card, I could just make this like a weekly thing. It doesn't have to be game.
I was talking about using that choice board to navigate.
Sorry, I got kicked out again.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I'm back.
Cool. I'm glad.
Me too.
That's why we have 2 people in the room.
Exactly. Let me go back and try to share my screen. Sure. Where did I leave off?
You were talking. You were on the choice board. It wasn't that far. It was like a couple seconds.
So I wasn't on the game card yet.
You were on this.
I was on this. Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Thank you. So you could go in and just customize each of these links to be whatever you wanted it to be. If you wanted it to be kind of the learning walk through a novel, you wanted it to be something geography, you really could customize the content. And these are all just links, you know, so this is a link to something on Star Wars arcade games. This is something else on Disney. These are some printable coloring pages, which I didn't mean to click on. So this one's a coding activity. So you could really build this out however you wanted to. I could just go in right now and say, hey, I no longer want Boba Fett. I don't want any of these characters in here. And you can just start deleting and customizing the game board. Everything on here, the idea more so is that you have a template to work from. It kind of doesn't really gamify the learning, but it makes it a little more engaging for them to want to, you know, work their way from the start to the finish line, if that makes sense. And, you know, and their final project can be something here that is related to something on the choice board, or they have to show how they, you know, you could obviously make it far more educational than this one is. So starting out with something even just simple like this, where they're working through it in kind of a quote unquote gamified manner. The next thing I wanted to share with you is this bento box idea. Now, Margot, I think you're still on. Basically, I know Margot has done this with bento boxes in the library, and I'm just going to, all right, I have it open already, good. So the history, this one talks about, this is also by this teacher, Amanda Sandoval, out in California, who does amazing, amazing things. So you can follow her on Twitter. She has a website that I can link to this at the end. She has an enormous amount of social studies content. She's a social studies teacher, and obviously tons and tons of time to do these amazing things. This one is called Bento Box. So if you know anything about bento boxes, that they're kind of a Japanese lunch that kind of recently people in the last few years, some parents were using them to send in food to their kids, and they were really working very hard to make these elaborate boxes of selections of food, far different than the peanut butter and jelly I was sent to school with. So that was the idea, is that the items that are in the bento box, it's a selection of items. And I believe back when they were really created, the selection was very particular, you know, so it was the different compartments housed different things that symbolize maybe the part of the country that child was from. And, you know, so you might see more seafood in one and more rice in another, things like that. So that same idea of a bento box turned into this book bento idea. And these are some great examples. So the first book there is The Outsiders. And basically the bento box takes the book, and then you have different objects that are paired with it. And it's just laid out on a table somewhere. And the objects that are surrounding the book symbolize different things in the book, in the story. So in The Outsiders, I'm not really sure. I'm thinking this is the character, the female character. I forget, her name was like Cherry or something like that, they called her, in The Outsiders. So every little object that's in this book bento signifies something in the book. So this idea I loved, because there are directions here for the student about a learning bento. So instead of it being just about a book, they're taking it to the next level of, you're going to learn about a topic, and then you're going to create a bento about that particular topic. So these are the directions, and this one she made about, you know, history, gives the instructions about researching the assigned topic. Now this one is a little more open-ended, you know, you can have in the next slide, I know she has some, watch this video, read this information. So it kind of takes what we were looking at before and amps it up a little bit. Like you can still have links to a video, information, vocabulary, you know, the basic things that you want them to take away from that in order to research their topic. And then they're going to create their learning bento. So let's go down and take a look. I love this slide because it talks about what symbolism is, and that they need to add 8 items to represent the following answers. And this again is geared more towards the social studies, but this can be changed up for a variety of different things. You can just give them the questions for what you want the symbolism. Here's an example of how, this is for students, of how they should set it up. So this is one book bento here. And so if you look at the number 1, it basically is this picture right here. Number 3, they gave you some information about what they chose here, and I guess its relationship to whatever the topic is. I actually like this one a little better, the World War II one, because this one gives you, for number 1, I couldn't understand this one, and I don't know if you can see it that well, but number 1 down here was a pair of scissors. And this was regarding World War II, and I couldn't understand. They were talking about Zoot Suiters were attacked in LA by American sailors, Marines, soldiers, and the Zoot Suiters would be taken to jail for the riots. That's what happened. That was the question that this student answered. I couldn't understand why they picked scissors, except they explained the symbolism over here, which I thought was terrific. So these are the 8 items that student chose to represent what they learned about xenophobia, and they answered each question is in the box here. What happened? Why did this happen? The perspectives. In this case, how were civil liberties violated? So you can give the 8 guiding questions, and then the students have to also select the items and then tell why they selected, what's the symbolism for them. So that was a lot. And here's a great bento template at the end of it. It just gives you a basic template of what we were just looking at that you can customize yourself. It's already ready to go, and you could share this out with your students. So let me come back to the choice boards, and let me get some people up here on the screen. Anything, Mike, that I should know? Anything in the chat? Anything we want to talk about before I move on?
No, I think you're doing an amazing job, obviously. We were talking about GIFs.
Oh, the really important stuff, the GIFs, the
Yeah, I mean, making it pretty is very
font and
important
stuff.
to me.
Absolutely. No, it absolutely is. I love this. I love that idea. So let me just wrap this thing up and then we're going to get to the nuts and bolts of this. So down here, there's also, and again, I'm sharing this document with you. And this is one of my favorite things because this is, all of these tools at the bottom are going to help you as well. These are links to a variety of different templates for all kinds of student directed activities that I mean, there's so many that I couldn't even go there. So this links to this slides for everything. And every one of these little documents in here is clickable for another template. It's amazing. And this just talks about all the different ways you can use Google Slides. A lot of people call it the Swiss Army knife of Google Suite because it's so versatile. It can be everything. It can be, you can turn it into a video. You can use it as a one slide document. You can make it a hyperdoc. You can make it a million different things. So it's so versatile that it has tons of uses. So that's why I linked that in here for more information. But let's talk about the important stuff. The important stuff being like can I just share that this is my Price is Right font up here, which I love so much that I used in here. And Mike was, we're using a site here. We were talking about this yesterday. It's called Font Meme. And you can go to fontmeme.com and use the text generator. And the cool thing about this is you can just generate text with, as it says here, with any font. And then you will basically on the website, type in the text that you want. I started by choosing a font. Like you can go get something that's a movie font. If you like anything on here, and it will generate your text in that style font. So it's really kind of cool. And that's why I just picked something silly like, you know, Price is Right, because I thought people might know it. But these are all things you type in you select your effects on it. You type in your font that you want, the wording that you want, and it generates it as an image. And then you copy that and you basically paste it into your slide. What other questions are on there, Mike, that we should answer?
Let me look. Does it add the font into your font list? No, technically this does not add it to your font list.
Right.
Because these fonts are not always Google fonts, unfortunately. Like that Price is Right font is not a Google font.
Right. So if you were using it, you wouldn't use it regularly. It does not show up in my font list. It's just something I go out to for something special, like, you know, this, or, you know, to create a title or something like that. But now I leave it in my bookmark so I can go back and forth. You can see right here, the Price is Right. So that's one thing. Was there another question in there about adding something?
GIFs.
Adding GIFs?
GIFs and Bitmojis.
All right.
What I recommended was for GIFs, if you go to giphy.com, Giphy, and then they have tons of GIFs, all different types, but they have stickers, and stickers are basically transparent animated GIFs. And there's every type, so be prepared for whatever comes up. But there's stickers at the top. You might not see it if you're it might be covered by your.
It's right over here.
Yeah. And
I
there's
also
tons of download and slides.
I also have.
This will slow down your computer.
Yes. I have Giphy as an extension up here. Giphy for Chrome. I put that as an extension just to be able to access it a little quicker. The other thing that we added was Bitmoji. And Bitmoji, I have the extension again for Chrome. And that basically allows me to, because I'm signed in with my account that I created for Bitmoji, it allows me to search Bitmoji on whatever slide I'm on, anything like that. I can just go in, find something that's interesting, like good stuff, and drag and drop it into my Google slide. And eventually it does show up there. which is nice. Typically you would have to do like a right click and paste, you know, copy and paste. But in here, when you're in slides, you can just drag and drop it right in. That's why I like it as the extension in order to do something like that. And those are just like little tools that we've used just to jazz things up. We were on a Bitmoji kick this week, as you could tell by the email and Google Classroom header. The other thing that I just think changes things up on a slide, if you're doing something like that, is changing the background and not just making it a blank something, choosing an image background, even if it's like brick wall. Oh, and Mike, yeah, I'm going to talk about that in a second. You know, choosing something as simple as that and adding that changes up what your slide looks like. You know, it just makes it a little bit more engaging. If you look in the chat, if you're not already on there, Mike he's talking about adding a regular emoji like the ones you're used to on your texting. And it's different on different devices. I know on the Mac I'm on, it's Control Command Space Bar, and then it pops up the emojis that I'm used to, and I can just add those in as part of my typing. Another cool thing. How will you share the templates with us on the Tech Tools page? So what I'll do is this document minus this last page that I added in here. I'm going to add this Google slide to the webinar page. I'll put it under like the video from this. And once that's done, and I'll link it under there, it'll say collaborative doc. And so that everything in here will be clickable for you. And you can access it just like I am from here. All right, Tony, I saw you just added that. And then the rest of this is just like, you know, this is a Giphy. That's where I got that from. And you can go into format it differently. You can, what did I do with that? There was a way, how did I do it with the shapes?
So
I can't remember.
The little crop button, right to the right.
Yes, right here. Yep. And you crop image. Oh, sorry, not crop image. You drop down the menu and you choose the shape that you want the Giphy to kind of fit into. So I chose just a circle on that one. And that's how you can change it so that it's not just a square, because this was a square image when I started. What if I want the Giphy to lead to another link? You're getting crazy there, Destiny. Let me see if you can do that. If I right click on it.
It should have a link button. I don't know if it's, maybe it's insert link. Maybe I'm wrong, but I know it's Control or Command K. Yeah.
If I click on it and then click insert link, it does let me link there. So you would just have to go up here to the link button and it does let me do that. Oh, Control K, Control K, okay. Any other questions for this?
Did you show how to make a copy of a slide if it's not already copyable?
No.
Like,
so
yeah,
the slideshow, the whole thing, like would I put in copy at the end of it?
Yeah.
For me, for my end of things. So if you wanted to share it with, who would you share with that way though?
I mean, if there's a template, right, and they for some reason don't have it already forcing them to make a copy.
Okay. Yep.
You can just, yeah.
So basically when you guys get this, you're going to get it and click on it and it's going to pop up with that, make a copy. You can force that to happen on any document that you make. So basically on here, you have to just go into the address bar at the top. Okay, up in here. And then you have to just kind of delete up to the word, get rid of the word edit, and then just type in copy. And that becomes your new hyperlink. And that's what you take this, you copy it and you paste it into, like, I don't know, your Google Classroom or wherever you wanted to share this, and it forces people when they click on it to make a copy so they don't ruin your original. It's basically doing the same thing that if you took it and added it to your Google Classroom and clicked off the make a copy for each student, it's doing the same thing. This is the other way to do it, is just to get rid of those last little bits of the address and change it to copy.
And
that's what you want me to show, right?
Yeah, you can also go to File and then go to make a copy. That part.
You could do that too. Yeah, yeah. this last little slide is on, this little link is on the bottom of the hyperdoc. And every one of these, I just want to point this out to you, like this is a Padlet of ideas, but like every little thing here is clickable and takes you to a template for that one particular, and it just takes a while to load. But every one of those is clickable. This one is an Iron Chef kind of thing. This one's about types of government. That's the choice board one. I haven't looked at this one yet, Jurassic app. That looks fun. Here's a Netflix. So these are already like themed, and then you can customize them for your own uses. A digital notebook. This one looks like a postcard type of thing. So Insta story. I mean, all of these things, and I think that's what we just keep coming back to is like, what keeps them coming back to your classroom to do the work at this point in time, right? Like making something interesting, making it not just be the same thing. It's what we compete with a lot in the classroom as it is. It's like even harder now because we don't have them face to face anymore. So I think just kind of adding some of this when you can and making it more student directed gives it a little more meaning for them. And again, takes off a little bit of the work on the front end for you. Like it's more work on the front end, and then it kind of lets you be and know that you're addressing this. It's not a way to teach math, obviously, but it's definitely a way to teach maybe different content areas and help them to be more just kind of student directed. It gives you a little breather by design, but it definitely gives them a little bit more to work towards. That's a little exciting for them.
Lauren, can I ask a question?
Of course.
When I do a Google slide with a theme like this, and I push it out to the classroom, whether it's an assignment or not, does it automatically create it as a template where everything is locked except where I want them to like answer or click on, or do I have to put a certain setting in to make it a template? Mike is shaking his head, yes.
Mike, you want to explain that, Mike?
Surely. So basically, this is like Google Classroom Google Slides 102 course. It's like advanced. But anything could be moved technically right now, but you can make it so that it's there's LaBelle talking about it. If you go to View and then go to Master, what this does is you can create a template with all of your stuff. So you'd be designing your entire slideshow in this template, and then when you exit out, it will become basically a background. It won't be a background, but it essentially will be a background that won't be touchable by the students.
Okay.
So it does take some explaining, and maybe it's a whole other EdCamp topic.
It's probably a good idea to do something more on this, but I also want to direct you to, hopefully by the end of today, if not tomorrow, Kim Babchick did a 10 o'clock session on this today on making draggable drag and drop slides, and she went into this whole thing with the master view. So once that video is up, it might be able to walk you through some of those steps.
Thank you.
Sure. I mean, for now, and then, we can have Mike do something bigger on it.
Yeah, and then right there, Lauren, that's a transparent square, by the way. So if you click on that, that's the gray one. Yeah, if you go into the paint bucket and you click on custom, this is a black square that's transparency is down, so that it will when things are too much going on in the background, you kind of need that transparency layer to get the main things shown. So cancel out of this for a second, and then close out of the master by pressing the little X on the right hand side. And then when you're here, you can see the background, but if you go to layout right in the middle, and then choose blank, just look at the difference. You can see that there's more I don't know, it's like a little distraction. As opposed to going back to that custom layout, and it causes that to be. It
kind of grays it over, which is what we want to get rid of on our Google Classroom headers, that grayed over transparency layer for those of us who are customizing that. But I guess it helps in a sense like this of graying out your background so it's not so bright. There's a lot of interference here, you know, when you have lots of color and clickables and movement and stuff like that. So, you know your classes, you know your students and your age groups and what's going to be appropriate for them and what you think is going to be too distracting. So I think just go with that.
Yep. I think that's it, though. You did a great job, obviously.
Well, thanks, everybody. I'm going to stop sharing and see how everybody's doing. Any other questions before we sign off? And Mike's got workers in the background there, it looks like. So he's got a lot going on in his little office back there,
Very
which I
busy.
love.
Hope you're social distancing, Mike.
That's so funny.
I just wanted to ask Allie Moss if she could stay on when we end. Do you mind, Lauren? She had a question.
No, that's fine.
For me. I thought I could just answer it now. You know, not with everybody on though. But...
Absolutely. Just tell me when to stop recording.
Okay.
All right. So I guess we'll wrap it up then. And again, this will be posted once we get, I'll definitely post the Google Docs shortly, but then the video, once it renders, I'll get that posted up there pretty soon. By this afternoon, later this afternoon. All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to stop recording. That way, Allie, you can ask your question.